Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back in time, way back, to an era where the salty spray wasn't just a refreshing mist, but a constant companion, and the creak of timber was the lullaby of the high seas. You're on a ship, a wooden beast groaning, with every swell the scent of tar and damp rope filling your nostrils. Above you, sails snap and billow like thunderclouds, pushing you across an endless expanse of churning ocean. Below deck, it's a living, breathing, often terrifying world, teeming with rough-hewn souls and, perhaps, a silent, four-legged observer. You might think you know the Golden Age of Piracy, with its cutlasses and buried treasure. But tonight, we're peeling back another layer, exploring a corner of maritime life that often gets overlooked. And trust me, you probably won't survive this deep dive without drifting off. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Right now in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself transported to the deck of a pirate vessel, perhaps the Queen Anne's Revenge, or the Revenge, somewhere in the sun-drenched Caribbean or off the wild coast of West Africa. The year is, let's say, 1718. The air is thick with the scent of salt, sweat, and something else, something distinctly musty and a little unsettling. As you cast your gaze around, you notice the worn planks underfoot, the intricate web of rigging overhead, and the constant, rhythmic sway that threatens to throw you off balance. But it's not the grand scale of the ship that catches your attention tonight. It's a subtle movement in the shadows, a fleeting glimpse of a twitching tail, a pair of gleaming eyes. You see it, don't you? A cat, not some pampered house pet, mind you, but a lean, muscled creature, perfectly at home amidst the chaos and grit. This isn't just any cat. This is a ship's cat, a vital, if often unacknowledged, member of the crew. Historians still argue whether the presence of cats on ships during the Golden Age of Piracy was purely pragmatic, or if superstition played a more significant role in their widespread adoption. But one thing is clear, these felines weren't just decorative. They were working animals, earning their keep in the most fundamental way imaginable. Imagine, if you will, the conditions below deck. No refrigeration, no sealed containers for food, provisions, barrels of biscuits, sacks of grain. Dried meats were stored wherever space could be found, often in damp, dark corners. And where there's food, especially in a confined wooden environment, there are always uninvited guests. We're talking, of course, about rodents. Picture a typical pirate ship. It's a wooden vessel, remember, crafted from countless planks and beams, full of nooks and crannies, perfect for a burgeoning population of rats and mice. These aren't just a nuisance. They are a full-blown menace. They gnaw through ropes, weakening vital rigging at the most inconvenient times. Imagine your sails collapsing mid-storm because a family of rodents decided to make a meal of the main sheet. They contaminate precious freshwater supplies, a death sentence in the middle of the ocean. They spoil food stores, leading to hunger and even scurvy among the crew. And perhaps most disturbingly, they carry diseases: bubonic plague, typhus, leptospirosis. These weren't just abstract threats. They were very real, very present dangers. and rats were often the primary vectors. It's enough to make your skin crawl just thinking about it, isn't it? You'd be constantly scanning the shadows, listening for the telltale scurrying, every creak of the ship potentially a sign of another infestation. This is where our feline heroes enter the scene. Long before the Golden Age of Piracy, cats had been accompanying sailors on voyages for centuries. Their reputation as formidable hunters of vermin was well established. From ancient Egyptian grain barges on the Nile to Viking longships braving the icy North Atlantic, the cat was an unsung partner in maritime endeavors. By the 17th and 18th centuries, it was almost inconceivable for a ship to set sail without at least one cat on board, sometimes several. These weren't pampered Persians or fluffy Maine Coons. These were typically hardy, short-haired Mausers, often strays or barn cats, chosen for their keen hunting instincts and adaptability. They were survivors, just like the pirates themselves. Think about the sheer scale of the problem. A ship, especially one on a long voyage, was a self-contained ecosystem, and a remarkably attractive one for rodents. They could breed rapidly in the darkness of the hold, protected from predators, with a constant supply of food. A single female rat can produce up to 12 litters a year, with each litter containing anywhere from 6 to 20 pups. Do the math. You could go from a few stowaway rodents to an overwhelming infestation in a matter of months, and once established, getting rid of them was a nightmare. Poisons were dangerous on a ship where food and water were precious and shared. Traps were often ineffective against a determined and prolific population. So, what's a captain to do? Call in the specialists, of course. The furry, four-legged, purring specialists. The integration of cats into the ship's hierarchy, informal as it was, became a standard practice. They weren't paid in doubloons, but they certainly earned their keep in vital resources, scraps of food from the galley, fresh water, and a safe, warm place to sleep, often curled up amongst the coiled ropes, or in a quiet corner of the captain's cabin. You might even see a grizzled pirate, tattooed and scarred, idly scratching a cat behind the ears as he listens to the creak of the timbers. It's a surprisingly domestic scene amidst the harsh realities of maritime life, almost comically out of place, like finding a tiny, artisanal coffee shop in the middle of a medieval battlefield. The cat's role wasn't just about the immediate kill, though that was certainly appreciated. Their very presence acted as a deterrent. Rats and mice are intelligent, cautious creatures. They quickly learn to avoid areas where predators are active. So, a ship with a resident cat, even one taking a nap, was less likely to become a haven for rodents in the first place. It was a proactive measure, a form of biological warfare waged against the tiny invaders, and it was remarkably effective. You'd probably find yourself sleeping a little easier, knowing there was a silent hunter on patrol, even if you sometimes tripped over it in the dark. And while we often romanticize the swashbuckling pirates, remember that their lives were incredibly tough, filled with hardship, disease, and constant danger. Anything that made life a little more bearable, a little safer, was embraced. The cat, in its quiet, efficient way, did just that. It kept the food supply viable, protected the structural integrity of the ship, and reduced the risk of widespread illness. These aren't the heroic tales of boarding parties and treasure chests, but they are the bedrock of survival at sea. It's the boring history, yes, but it's the history that truly mattered. And as you feel the gentle rocking of the ship beneath you can almost hear the soft purr of a ship's cat, a constant, comforting presence amidst the vast, indifferent ocean. So, you've settled into the rhythm of the ship, the endless creak and groan of timber becoming a strange sort of lullaby. You're aware now of the silent partners on board, those whiskered guardians against the gnawing menace. But to truly grasp the problem they faced, you need to understand the scale of the rodent infestation on a Golden Age pirate ship. It wasn't just a few mice. It was an entire ecosystem of scurrying, gnawing, breeding beasts. Belly of the ship, dark and often damp, even in the driest climates. This was where the bulk of the provisions were stored. Biscuits, often as hard as rock, packed into wooden barrels. Dried meat hanging from hooks, sacks of flour and grain, and, crucially, barrels of fresh water. Every single one of these items was a beacon to a hungry rat. You'd open a barrel of ship's biscuit, only to find half of it riddled with holes, gnawed clean through, and often little droppings scattered among the remaining crumbs. It wasn't just unappetizing, it was a serious threat to the crew's sustenance. Imagine being weeks from land, facing dwindling supplies, and discovering a significant portion has been ruined by vermin. That's not just an inconvenience, that's a potential death sentence. These weren't your average city rats, either. These were often Norway rats, or black rats, incredibly resilient, adaptable, and surprisingly intelligent creatures. They could squeeze through unbelievably small gaps, climb ropes with ease, and even swim if necessary. A ship was, for them, a floating paradise. It offered shelter, warmth, especially below deck, and a constant, albeit finite, food source. And crucially, it offered relative safety from land-based predators. Once a colony established itself, it was incredibly difficult to dislodge. You'd hear them at night, a constant scratching and squeaking from the bulkheads, an unsettling reminder of their pervasive presence. It's enough to make you itch just thinking about it, isn't it? Like trying to sleep in a particularly noisy attic, but the attic is also your only home for months on end. The damage went far beyond just food. Consider the ship itself. These vessels were crafted from wood, held together with ropes and tar. Rats would gnaw through ropes, not just the ones securing cargo, but critical rigging. Imagine a stormy night, waves crashing over the bow, and a vital line suddenly snaps because a rat had been chewing on it for weeks. That could be the difference between riding out the storm and being capsized. They'd chew through wooden crates, barrels, and even parts of the ship's structure if they were desperate enough. Historians still argue whether some unexplained structural failures at sea might have been hastened by extensive rodent damage. While direct causation is hard to prove, the potential for weakening the ship was very real. Then there's the issue of disease. This is where the rodent problem transitioned from a nuisance to a potentially catastrophic threat. Rats are notorious carriers of fleas, and those fleas can carry bubonic plague. While outbreaks on ships weren't as common as on land, the potential was always there, lurking in the shadows. Typhus, leptospirosis, salmonella. These were all very real dangers, and the rats were vectors. A single sick rat could introduce a deadly disease to an entire crew confined in close quarters, miles from any medical help. Imagine the dread of seeing a rat scurry past, knowing it could be carrying something far more dangerous than its sharp teeth. It makes you appreciate modern sanitation, doesn't it? The methods of dealing with rodents before the widespread use of cats were rudimentary and often ineffective. Sailors would try to bash them with clubs, but against a nimble and numerous foe, it was largely futile. Some might try to smoke them out, but this carried obvious risks on a wooden ship filled with gunpowder. Traps existed, but they were often simple snares, limited in number, and again, not effective against a rapidly multiplying population. You might catch a few, but for every one you caught, 10 more seemed to appear. It was a losing battle, a frustrating, unending skirmish against an enemy that just kept multiplying. This is why the introduction of cats was a game changer. They weren't just another tool in the fight. They were a living, breathing, instinct-driven solution. A cat, unlike a trap, didn't need bait. It didn't need resetting. It was constantly on patrol, its senses finely tuned to detect the slightest rustle or scurry. A good ship's cat was worth its weight in gold, or rather, in unspoiled provisions. And healthy crew members, they were, in essence, the ship's biological pest control system, operating 24/7 without complaint, except perhaps for a demanding meow for a fish head. To think about the psychological impact to living in such close quarters, surrounded by the constant threat of disease and spoiled food, would have been incredibly stressful. The constant presence of rats would have been a source of anxiety and disgust. The cat, by actively reducing this threat, brought a measure of peace of mind, a subtle but significant improvement to the living conditions. You'd likely feel a sense of relief, knowing that at least one part of your miserable existence on the high seas was being competently handled by a creature that asked for little in return. The sheer numbers of rodents could be staggering, accounts from later periods, but indicative of the continuing problem. Speak of ships being utterly overrun, with rats swarming and running over men's faces at night, while specific pirate ship logs rarely detail the exact number of rats. The universal adoption of cats on virtually every vessel speaks volumes about the severity of the problem. If it was just a few rats here and there, a cat wouldn't have become such a ubiquitous and essential part of a ship's complement. The fact that they were considered indispensable suggests a significant and ever-present infestation that threatened the very viability of long voyages. The irony, of course, is that these hardened, often brutal pirates, who might think nothing of plundering a ship or engaging in a bloody skirmish, relied so heavily on these small, often affectionate creatures. It's a strange juxtaposition, isn't it? The same hands that wielded cutlasses and fired cannons would gently stroke a purring feline, a testament to the cat's undeniable value. It's like finding out that your favorite gruff, tough guy movie character secretly knits adorable sweaters for stray kittens. The image just doesn't quite fit, but there it is. So, as you imagine yourself navigating the dimly lit corridors below deck, the air thick with the smell of old wood and the distant temps of the sea, you'd be constantly aware of the presence of the hidden enemies, and just as constantly, you'd be grateful for the silent, slinking shapes, the occasional flash of a tail disappearing into a shadow, knowing that somewhere a patrol was underway. The battle against the rodents was a perpetual one, waged in the unseen corners of the ship, and the cat was the most effective warrior on the crew's side. Without them, the voyages would have been far more perilous, and the survival rate of both crew and cargo significantly lower. It makes you wonder how many historical events, how many successful pirating ventures owed their outcome, in some small part, to the tireless work of a furry, four-legged exterminator. You've seen the problem, felt the oppressive weight of the unseen menace scuttling through the ship's timbers. Now, let's talk about the solution, the unsung heroes of the high seas, the cats themselves. It wasn't just their presence that mattered. It was their unparalleled hunting prowess, their finely tuned predatory instincts that made them such invaluable assets. You see, a cat isn't just a pet, four-legged assassin with instincts honed over millennia. Imagine a cat poised low to the ground, every muscle coiled, tail twitching almost imperceptibly. Its eyes, those mesmerizing slits, are fixed not on a laser pointer, but on the faintest rustle coming from a stack of barrels. Its ears, like tiny satellite dishes, swivel independently, pinpointing the exact location of the sound. This isn't learned behavior, it's hardwired. From the moment they're tiny kittens playing with their littermates, they're practicing the ancient art of the pounce. This innate ability, combined with their incredible agility and stealth, made them the ultimate weapon against shipboard rodents. Consider the physical attributes. A cat's flexibility is legendary. They can contort their bodies into incredible shapes, squeeze through impossibly tight spaces, and navigate the labyrinthine passages of a ship's hold with ease. Where a human would stumble or get stuck, a cat flows a liquid shadow, able to access every nook and cranny where rodents might hide. Their claws, sharp and retractable, provide instant grip on wooden beams and rough surfaces, allowing them to scale walls and drop from heights with surprising grace. And their teeth, small but needle-sharp, are perfectly designed for dispatching small prey quickly and efficiently. It's like equipping your pest control team with miniature grappling hooks and precision cutting tools. Then there are the senses. A cat's night vision is far superior to a human's, crucial in the dimly lit or completely dark holds of a ship, where you'd be fumbling, stubbing your toe, and generally making a racket. The cat moves silently, seeing perfectly in conditions that would render you effectively blind. Their hearing is exceptionally acute, capable of detecting the high-frequency squeaks and rustles and their sense of smell, while not as strong as a dog's, is still far more sensitive than ours, allowing them to track prey by scent trails left hours earlier. You might be oblivious, but your feline companion is processing a symphony of tiny sounds and scents, building a detailed map of the rodent population. The sheer efficiency of their hunting technique is remarkable. Unlike a human trying to catch a rat, which often results in a lot of shouting and missed swings, a cat's approach is methodical and patient. They stalk their prey, using every bit of available cover. The final pounce is swift and decisive, often ending the chase in an instant. There's no drama, just cold, hard, biological efficiency. It's a masterclass in predatory behavior, played out daily in the bowels of a wooden ship. One quirky tidbit about ship's cats: some accounts suggest that particularly effective mousers were highly prized, and their presence on a ship could even be seen as a sign of a well-run vessel. Imagine a captain boasting about his ship's cat in a tavern. It highlights how integral these animals were to the functionality and survival of the ship. You could almost hear a pirate bragging, "I, me, ol cat whiskers." He clears out a hold faster than Blackbeard can clear a tavern. This innate hunting drive meant that ship's cats required very little in the way of training. You didn't teach a cat to hunt rats. You simply provided the opportunity. Their instincts did the rest. They were self-sufficient exterminators, working tirelessly, often throughout the night, ensuring that the rodent population was kept in check. This wasn't just about killing. It was about deterrence. The very presence of a predator, especially one as effective as a cat, would make rats and mice wary, forcing them to be more cautious, less brazen in their foraging. This reduced the overall damage, even if every single rodent wasn't caught. Historians still argue whether the species of cat truly mattered, or if any domestic cat would suffice, provided it had the right temperament. While specific breeds weren't recognized in the same way they are today, it's likely that a lineage of hardy, working cats. These were not the pampered lap cats of aristocratic estates. You can almost see them, lean and wiry, with a glint in their eyes that says, "Don't even think about it," squeaky. The effectiveness of cats also helped conserve resources. Every rope preserved meant less need for repairs and replacements, saving precious time and materials. In an environment where every resource was finite and every delay could be fatal, the silent work of the ship's cat had tangible, life-saving consequences. You wouldn't think something so small could have such a large impact, but at sea, every little bit counted. Beyond the practical, there's an almost primal satisfaction in watching a cat hunt. It's a connection to nature, a reminder of the raw, untamed world that existed just beyond the confines of the ship. 4 men cooped up for months, often in monotonous conditions. The occasional thrilling pursuit of a mouse might have even provided a small, albeit grisly, form of entertainment. It's a dark comedy, really, watching a battle for survival unfold right under your nose, featuring an unlikely star. And let's not forget the sheer adaptability of these creatures. A ship in the Golden Age of Piracy was a dynamic, often violent environment. It moved constantly, sometimes violently, to navigate the clamor. This resilience made them perfect companions for the unpredictable life of a pirate. You'd likely see them sleeping through a storm that had the most seasoned sailors gripping the rails, only to wake up for their next hunting patrol as soon as the weather calmed. So, as you walk the decks of this ancient vessel, the air still thick with the scent of brine and tar, remember the quiet, efficient hunters that roamed its depths. They were the low hum of a biological machine, perfectly attuned to its purpose. The very fabric of the ship, its ability to carry its crew and cargo safely across vast oceans, rested, in part, on the sharp claws and keen instincts of its feline inhabitants. They were the original, and arguably most successful, form of organic pest control, silently ensuring that the pirates could focus on their swashbuckling adventures rather than waging a losing battle against a horde of hungry rats. You've understood the relentless enemy and the extraordinary efficiency of the feline hunter. Beyond their invaluable pest control services, these animals often became something far more profound, companions in the isolated, often brutal world of a pirate vessel where trust was scarce and life cheap. A purring cat offered a unique form of comfort and even emotional stability. Imagine yourself months at sea, the endless horizon, the constant sway, the same faces day in and day out. Loneliness was a pervasive companion, even amidst a crew of rowdy men. Life was hard, filled with physical labor, poor food, and the ever-present threat of storms, battle, or disease. There were no therapists, no comfort food, no easy escapes. In this harsh reality, a creature that offered unconditional affection, a soft touch, and a calming presence became an unexpected anchor. A cat doesn't judge your past, doesn't care if you're a notorious buccaneer or a pressed man. It just seeks warmth, food, and perhaps a gentle scratch behind the ears. For men who might have been estranged from family, hesitate to swing a cutlass, quietly fussing over a cat. It's a surprising vulnerability, isn't it? Hinting at a softer side beneath the rough exterior. Like finding a teddy bear hidden amongst a pirate's weaponry. This companionship wasn't a one-way street either. Sailors understood that their cats relied on them for food and water, for a safe haven in a chaotic environment. This mutual dependency fostered a sense of responsibility and connection. They were part of the crew, albeit a furry, non-speaking part. And when a cat chose to curl up on a sailor's bunk or rub against his leg, it was a silent affirmation. Fact to consider: the concept of pets as we understand them today, animals kept purely for companionship, was still evolving during this period. For most of history, animals primarily served a utilitarian purpose. Yet, the deep bonds formed with ship's cats often transcended pure utility, hinting at the burgeoning idea of animals as beloved companions. It suggests that even in the most pragmatic environments, the human need for connection finds a way. The cat also served as a link to home, or at least to the familiar world ashore. For many sailors, their lives were spent almost entirely at sea. A cat, with its domestic habits, its purring contentment, and its simple needs, offered a tangible connection to the land, to normalcy, to the idea of a settled life, however distant that might seem. It was a piece of land-based comfort, transported across the vast, lonely ocean. Though difficult to verify, speak of sailors occasionally training their cats for minor tricks, or even to recognize specific crew members. While probably not as sophisticated as a modern-day circus act, it points to the level of interaction and affection that developed. Imagine a pirate whistling a tune and his cat meowing along. It speaks to a bond beyond mere tolerance. The role of cats in maintaining morale shouldn't be underestimated. In the close confines of a ship, tensions could run high. A cat, with its playful antics or its calming presence, could act as a small, unexpected diversion. Watching a cat chase a piece of string or playfully swat at a dangling rope might offer a moment of lightheartedness, a brief respite from the harsh realities of pirate life. It's like finding a single perfectly ripe mango in a barrel of stale biscuits, a small but significant moment of joy. Historians still argue whether ship's cats were considered collective property of the crew, or if they often belonged to a specific individual, usually the captain or a high-ranking officer. While their pest control duties benefited everyone, the anecdotes often speak of personal attachments. But some individuals would undoubtedly form deeper, more personal bonds, becoming the primary caregiver and confidant to the ship's feline resident. And consider the silence. Ships were noisy environments, squeaking timbers, snapping sails, shouting men, cannon fire. But beneath all that, a cat's purr is a uniquely calming sound. It's a gentle vibration, a sign of contentment, a low hum that could cut through the noise and offer a moment of quiet solace. You might find yourself drifting off to sleep, not to the cacophony of the ship, but to that rhythmic, soothing rumble against your chest or near your ear. The presence of cats also fostered a sense of shared responsibility among the crew. While one person might be the primary caregiver, positive common interest among men who often had little else in common beyond their life of crime. It's like a tiny, furry common ground that bridged the gaps between different personalities and backgrounds. Sometimes to rescue a cat if it fell overboard. These weren't just animals. They were living members of the crew, with their own personalities and quirks, contributing to the unique atmosphere of the ship. Their absence would have been keenly felt, not just in terms of increased rodents, but in the emptiness of their customary presence. You might be surprised to learn that some cats even had their own small quarters or designated sleeping spots, perhaps a specially made hammock or a favored corner in a dry, warm place. This indicates a deliberate effort to ensure their comfort and well-being, further cementing their status beyond mere working animals. On the deck, feeling the sun on your face and the wind in your hair, take a moment to imagine not just the swashbuckling pirates, but the quiet, purring presence that shared their voyages. The ship's cat, a small creature in a vast, dangerous world, offered not only protection from unseen enemies, but also a profound. They were the silent witnesses to history, the calm amidst the storm, and the gentle touch in a world of calloused hands and hardened hearts. They remind us that even in the most unlikely places, the simple bond between a human and an animal can flourish, providing solace where it's least expected. You felt the quiet comfort a cat could bring to a grizzled pirate, a stark contrast to the cutthroat life. But as much as these creatures were pragmatic pest controllers and beloved companions, they also sailed on a sea of superstition. The Golden Age of Piracy was steeped in beliefs about luck, omens, and the capricious whims of fate, and cats, with their mysterious ways and nocturnal habits, were naturally woven into this intricate tapestry of maritime folklore. Imagine the typical pirate crew. Many were uneducated, deeply religious in their own fashion, or at least highly superstitious. Every creak of the ship, every shift in the wind, every unusual wave could be interpreted as a sign. And in this world, an animal as enigmatic as a cat was bound to acquire a host of associations, both good and ill. You'd find yourself watching a cat's behavior, trying to discern if it held a hidden message about the voyage ahead. One of the most widespread beliefs centered around black cats. On land, they were often associated with witchcraft and ill fortune, but at sea, their reputation could be flipped. A black cat on a ship was often considered particularly lucky, a bringer of good weather and safe passage. Some sailors believed they held the power to calm storms, their presence a silent ward against the fury of the ocean. This might stem from their general association with protection against rodents, extending their perceived power to more metaphysical threats. You could almost hear a nervous pirate whispering, "Thank the stars for old midnight." Conversely, there were beliefs that certain actions involving cats could bring bad luck. Throwing a cat overboard, for instance, was considered an absolute taboo, guaranteed to conjure a violent storm. Harming a ship's cat in any way was thought to invite disaster, from shipwrecks to epidemics. Even speaking ill of a ship's cat could be seen as tempting fate. This isn't just about animal cruelty, it's about a deep-seated fear of cosmic retribution. You certainly wouldn't want to be the sailor who dared to kick the ship's cat, knowing the entire crew would probably blame you for the next rogue wave. There was a peculiar belief that if a ship's cat suddenly became unusually playful or energetic, it signaled an impending storm. The theory was that cats, being more attuned to nature's subtle shifts, could sense changes in atmospheric pressure long before humans. So, if your typically sleepy ship's cat was suddenly tearing around the deck like a miniature whirlwind, you'd be wise to brace for rough weather. It's like having a furry, purring barometer on board, far more reliable than anything your quartermaster might possess. Historians still argue whether these superstitions were genuinely held beliefs or simply cautionary tales designed to ensure the cats were treated well, thereby protecting the ship's vital pest control. While the latter certainly makes practical sense, the pervasive nature of maritime folklore suggests a genuine element of belief. Sailors, constantly facing the unpredictable power of the sea, sought any means to exert a perceived control over their destiny, from whistling on deck, which was believed to summon winds, often undesirable ones, to avoiding certain days for setting sail, became integrated into this existing framework of superstition. One quirky or fringe tidbit related to this is the belief in cat's paws, not the actual paw of a cat, but a term used to describe small, localized patches of ripples on the water's surface, indicating a light breeze. The term itself is thought to derive from the idea of a cat gently padding across a surface, leaving only the lightest imprint. This subtle linguistic connection further illustrates how deeply cats were intertwined with the maritime world and its specific terminology. There was also a less common but equally intriguing belief that cats could communicate with ghosts or spirits that sometimes haunted ships. Given the often violent and tragic ends many sailors met, ships were ripe for spectral stories. A cat staring intently at an empty corner or seemingly reacting to something unseen could easily be interpreted as interacting with the spectral crew. You might laugh at it now, but alone on a dark, creaking ship in the middle of the ocean, every shadow can play tricks on your mind. The cat's perceived connection to fate wasn't always positive. Some sailors believed that if a cat fell or was swept overboard and drowned, it was an extremely bad omen, almost guaranteeing the ship would sink or face severe misfortune on that voyage. This added an extra layer of protection for the animals, as even the most hardened pirate would hesitate to risk the entire crew's safety for a momentary lapse of care. You'd be extra careful around the ship's rail if a cat was nearby, wouldn't you? Conversely, a cat jumping ship while in port was seen as a grave warning, often interpreted as the cat sensing impending disaster for the vessel. Sailors would actively try to prevent a cat from leaving if it seemed intent on abandoning the ship, viewing its attempt as a clear sign that the ship was doomed. Desire for control in a world where so much was beyond human influence. The weather, the currents, the whims of rival ships, these were forces that sailors largely couldn't command. But by observing the cat, by treating it in a certain way, they believed they could subtly influence their luck, tilting the scales of fate in their favor. It offered a sense of agency, however illusory, in a life defined by precariousness. The reverence for ships' cats. This, of course, benefited both the cats and the crew. A well-fed, healthy cat is a more effective hunter and a more amiable companion. So, while some beliefs might seem quaint or irrational to us now, they often had a very practical, if indirect, benefit for the ship's ecosystem. It's a beautifully circular relationship, isn't it? Superstition leads to good treatment, which leads to better pest control, which leads to a safer ship. So, as you watch a sleek black cat stretch lazily on a sun-drenched deck, a tiny master of its domain, remember that it's more than just a mouser. It's a barometer of the elements, a harbinger of fortune, and a silent guardian against unseen spirits. Its purr isn't just contentment, it's a low hum of ancient beliefs, echoing through the timber of the ship, a constant reminder of the mystical side of life on the high seas. You're not just sailing with pirates, you're sailing with their beliefs, their hopes, and their very primal fears, all subtly influenced by the quiet presence of a feline. You've delved into the superstitions surrounding our feline friends at sea, adding another layer to their mysterious aura. At sea, it wasn't all chasing rats and napping in the captain's cabin, though those were certainly highlights. Imagine a ship as a floating, self-contained world. For a cat, it was both its hunting ground and its home, a place where instincts and adaptation constantly intertwined, as the sun rose, painting the sky in fiery hues over the endless ocean. The ship's cat would often be among the first stirring. This initial foray wasn't just about hunger. It was an innate territorial sweep. Begin its rounds. First stop, the galley, or cook's quarters. The cook, a crucial figure on any ship, would often be preparing the morning meal, perhaps a watery gruel or hardtack of meat, a bit of fish, or even a piece of biscuit softened with water. This wasn't just charity, it was an investment. A well-fed cat was a happy cat, and a happy cat was an effective cat. You'd see the cook, often a burly, no-nonsense fellow, gently tossing a morsel to the waiting feline. During daylight hours, when the crew was most active, much of its hunting would be done in the deeper, darker reaches of the ship, the hold. Cat was their undisputed king. You'd often hear the telltale thumps and scuffles from below deck, a clear sign that the ship's pest controller was hard at work. A mainstream historical fact here is the sheer amount of time sailors spent performing routine maintenance. From scrubbing decks to mending sails, the ship was a never-ending project. It learned the best spots to observe, the quietest routes to patrol, and the safest places to nap without being underfoot, just as it is for any cat. But these weren't just idle naps. They were strategic rests, conserving energy for bursts of intense activity. They'd seek out warm, dry spots, a patch of sun on the main deck, nestled among spare sails, or even curled up on a sailor's chest during a watch. These rest periods also served another purpose: passive deterrence. A sleeping cat, even if seemingly inactive, still broadcast its predatory presence through scent and subtle cues, keeping opportunistic rodents at bay. You'd occasionally see a sailor carefully stepping over a sleeping cat, based on the ship's specific layout and the crew's habits. For instance, a cat might learn the exact time the galley prepared scraps. Some even seemed to patrol specific areas, becoming the acknowledged guardian of a particular storeroom or section of the deck. It's almost like they had their own tiny, unwritten job descriptions. As evening approached, and the ship settled into its nocturnal rhythm, the cat would become even more active. Night was prime hunting time for rodents, and consequently, for cats. With fewer humans moving about, the cat had free rein to explore every dark corner, every shadow-draped crevice. Faint during the day would become more pronounced, providing a clear map for the vigilant hunter. You'd hear the quick scurry of paws, followed by a sudden thud, and then silence, the unmistakable sign of a successful hunt. Water was always a precious commodity on a ship, and the cat's access to it was typically prioritized. Sailors would ensure a small bowl of fresh water was available, understanding its importance for the cat's health and effectiveness. Just about the cat catching rats. It was about the crew ensuring the cat had the resources to do so. Historians still argue whether specific cats developed a preference for certain types of prey, perhaps specializing in rats over mice, or vice versa, depending on the predominant rodent population on their particular vessel. While difficult to prove with certainty from historical records, anecdotal evidence from later periods suggests that some cats were indeed more efficient at tackling one type of rodent over another, showcasing their specialized skills. The cat's daily life was also intertwined with the social dynamics of the crew. They became a focal point for affection, a shared interest. You might see two pirates, perhaps at odds, over some minor dispute. It served as a small, furry, and surprisingly effective social lubricant. It's like the ship's therapist, but with more purring and fewer existential questions. During periods of rough weather, the cat would instinctively seek out the most secure and stable parts of the ship. They learned to brace themselves against the pitching and rolling, finding surprisingly stable perches or clinging to rigging. You'd watch in awe as a cat navigated a deck that had even seasoned, often finding warmth and security near a human presence, curling up on a sailor's bunk, or simply near the faint glow of a lantern. They would drift off. Their presence wasn't just a physical one, it was a subtle, comforting hum that permeated the ship's cat. From the first light of dawn to the deep shadows of night, it was a creature of purpose. Its day a blend of vigilant patrols, strategic naps, and brief moments of affection. It was a life lived on the move, a testament to adaptability and instinct, and an essential component of every successful voyage, making every day at sea just a little bit safer and a little less rat-infested. And its surprising contribution to the mundane aspects of maritime life. But let's delve into something a bit more intriguing, something that adds a dash of personality to our historical narrative. The personal relationships between pirate captains and their purring peers. These aren't just anonymous felines. Some of these cats might have been as much a part of the captain's identity as their tricorn hat or their favored cutlass. Imagine a figure like Blackbeard, Edward Teach himself, the notorious pirate whose very name struck fear into the hearts of sailors across the Atlantic. He was known for his terrifying appearance, his smoking beard, and his ruthless demeanor. Now, picture this fearsome man, not in the midst of a boarding action, but quietly stroking a cat, perhaps perched on his shoulder as he consults a chart, or curled at his feet while he sips his rum. It's a jarring image, isn't it? A testament to the universal appeal of a feline companion, even to the most hardened of outlaws, makes it highly probable that even he, in his quieter moments, shared a space with one. This isn't just about captains. It extends to other high-ranking officers, too. The quartermaster, often the second in command, and the crew's elected representative, might have had a particular fondness for a ship's cat, overseeing its care and ensuring it was well fed. Might have found the calm presence of a cat a soothing distraction in their often grim quarters, filled with crude instruments and ailing men. One mainstream historical fact, too, anchored this historical records and accounts. While not always detailing every cat, frequently mention animals as part of a ship's complement. Captains, being at the top of the ship's hierarchy and often having more private space, were naturally positioned to form closer bonds with these animals. They might have allowed the cat more access to their cabins, where it could enjoy a drier, warmer, and generally more comfortable existence than elsewhere on the ship. Consider the isolation of command. A captain, even a pirate captain, often bore immense responsibility for the ship and its crew. While they projected an image of unwavering authority, they too were human, facing immense pressure and loneliness at the top. A cat, with its presence, could offer a unique form of silent companionship, a release from the constant need to maintain a formidable persona. It's like a furry, purring therapist who only charges in fish heads. There's a quirky or fringe tidbit here. Some historical anecdotes suggest that certain captains had cats that were almost considered their familiar, much like the familiars of witches in folklore. That could occur. Imagine a pirate captain looking to his cat for a silent cue before making a major decision, as if the cat's contented signified good fortune. Historians still argue whether the perceived personality traits of a ship's cat, its independence, resilience, and predatory nature, somehow mirrored or appealed to the characteristics valued by pirates themselves. Was it a sense of kinship, a mutual respect between two wild, free-roaming spirits? It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Finding common ground on the high seas, the concept of a captain's cat became almost a symbol of a captain's domesticity, a small, soft counterpoint to the hard edges of their life. For some, it might have been the only steady, affectionate presence in a life filled with transient acquaintances and violent encounters. These cats might have traveled with the captain from ship to ship, becoming legendary in their own right amongst certain pirate circles. You can almost imagine the hushed tales of Captain Bloody Morgan's cat. A captain's favor meant the cat was likely to be even better cared for, receiving better food scraps and more attention. This, in turn, could make the cat a more effective hunter, creating a virtuous cycle that benefited the entire ship. It's a subtle but significant factor in the overall health and functionality of the vessel. You might wonder how these cats were acquired. Some might have been stray kittens found in port, brought aboard by a sympathetic sailor, or even the captain themselves. Others might have been adopted from captured merchant ships, or even liberated during a raid. However they came aboard, once they earned their stripes or spots, they would be present during strategy, meetings, during disciplinary actions, and during moments of solitary contemplation. They saw the captain at their most vulnerable and at their most formidable. They were the ultimate confidants, incapable of betrayal and completely trustworthy. This unspoken trust must have been invaluable to someone who lived in a world where betrayal was always a possibility. So, as you picture the formidable figures of the Golden Age of Piracy, don't just see the glint of steel and the roar of cannons. Imagine the quiet moments, the gentle hand stroking a soft fur, the silent understanding between a powerful pirate captain and their purring companion. These cats were not just vermin catchers. They were trusted confidants, sources of comfort, and perhaps a small, furry reminder of the humanity that lingered even in the most hardened hearts. They offer a unique, softer lens through which to view the lives of these infamous figures, adding unexpected depth to their often brutal sagas. You've imagined the surprising intimacy between pirate captains and their feline companions. Now, let's pivot slightly and consider another facet of the ship's cat's role, one tied intimately to the unpredictable nature of seafaring. Their status as lucky charms and mascots. In a world fraught with danger and uncertainty, anything that offered a perceived edge against the caprices of fate was embraced, and the ship's cat often purred its way into this crucial, symbolic position. Imagine the sheer desperation for good fortune on a pirate vessel. Every voyage was a gamble. Would they find plunder? Would they evade the Royal Navy? Would a storm blow them off course or sink them entirely? In such high-stakes conditions, sailors, from the lowest deckhand to the captain, clung to any belief that might tilt the odds in their favor. And a cat, with its mysterious aura and perceived connection to the elements, was a prime candidate for a living talisman. The most common belief was that a ship with a healthy, contented cat was inherently a lucky ship. The cat's presence was seen as a blessing, a silent guardian that not only kept rats at bay, but also warded off ill luck, bad weather, and even enemy ships. It was almost as if the cat's purr vibrated through the very timbers of the vessel, creating a protective aura. You'd find yourself glancing at the cat, a silent prayer of reassurance passing through your mind, stubbornly empty of sails. This perception of luck wasn't entirely divorced from their practical role. A ship free of rampant rodent infestation was, by definition, a healthier and more resilient ship. Less disease, less damage to rigging and provisions. These tangible benefits would naturally be associated with good fortune. So, the cat became a symbol of the very good conditions it helped to create. It's a clever trick, isn't it? Being seen as lucky because you're effective. One mainstream historical fact that supports this is the universal presence of mascots on military and merchant vessels throughout maritime history, extending far beyond the Golden Age of Piracy. From dogs and parrots to monkeys and bears, animals have long been adopted as symbols of good luck and camaraderie. Cats, however, with their practical utility and self-sufficiency, were perhaps the most enduring and common choice. Their adaptability to ship life made them ideal. Consider the role of a mascot for crew morale. A mascot provided a focal point for positive sentiment, a shared affection that could bind the crew together. When times were tough, seeing the ship's cat calmly grooming itself, seemingly unfazed by the storms or the absence of plunder, could offer a subtle sense of reassurance. It's like having a furry, purring cheerleader for the whole crew. If Socks isn't worried, why should I be? There's a quirky or fringe tidbit concerning cats and their supposed ability to predict weather. As mentioned before, if a cat started to sneeze, it was believed to mean rain was coming. If it purred more than usual, it indicated good weather. And if it became unusually lively, dashing about the ship, a gale was thought to be on its way. Sailors would actively observe their ship's cat for these subtle cues, treating them as informal, living barometers. Imagine the entire crew collectively watching a cat's behavior, trying to divine the next turn of the weather, a testament to how seriously these beliefs were taken. Historians still argue whether the specific color or markings of a cat influenced its luck status. While black cats were often highly prized, as discussed earlier, it's likely that the temperament and effectiveness of the individual cat mattered more than its coat. A lazy, ineffective mouser, regardless of its color, would likely lose its esteemed status as a lucky charm pretty quickly. Pragmatism, even amidst superstition, usually won out. The cat's inherent independence also contributed to its mystique. Unlike a dog, which often seeks human approval, a cat operates on its own terms. This aloofness, combined with its occasional bursts of affection, might have reinforced the idea that its presence was a gift, not something demanded. It came and went as it pleased, a free spirit on a free ship, further cementing its role as a bringer of spontaneous fortune. Sometimes, the luck attributed to a ship's cat was so strong that they would be given special privileges or even rituals. Perhaps the first scrap of food from a fresh kill would go to the cat, or a special blessing would be whispered over it before a major battle. These small acts reinforced its symbolic importance, weaving it deeper into the fabric of the ships. Operational beliefs. The ship's cat was also a living reminder of success. If a ship had been on a string of successful raids or navigated particularly treacherous waters unscathed, the cat, being a constant presence, would inevitably be associated with that good fortune. It would become part of the ship's legend, enhancing its reputation amongst the crew and, perhaps, even amongst other pirates who heard the tales. That sea serpent, aye, she's a lucky ship, got a Ginger Tom that's seen 100 storms and twice as many prizes. And then there's the emotional connection. The very act of caring for a creature, especially one that responds with affection, can be incredibly uplifting. The happiness derived from a purring cat, a playful pounce, or simply its calming presence, directly contributed to the crew's well-being. A content crew, even a pirate crew, is often a more effective and less mutinous one. So, in a roundabout way, the mascot status of the cat contributed to the ship's success by boosting the psychological state of its human occupants. You might find it amusing that some pirates, hardened by battle and lawlessness, could be so utterly tender with their ship's cat. This contrast between their brutal profession and their gentle treatment of a small animal speaks volumes about the depth of the bond and the power of these mascots. They were a touchstone of humanity, a small, furry piece of something good and pure in a world often devoid of both. So, as you watch the ship's cat survey its domain from a comfortable perch, perhaps on the crossbeam of a cannon, remember that it's more than just a pet. It's a living charm, a furry prophet, and a steadfast symbol of hope for a crew constantly battling the odds. Its purr isn't just a sound. It's the gentle hum of good fortune, a constant reassurance in the vast, unpredictable expanse of the pirate seas, and perhaps, just perhaps, its quiet presence truly did make a difference in the fate of many a Golden Age vessel. You've seen the pirate cat as a lucky charm, a mystical barometer of fate. But even mascots face the harsh realities of life at sea. Now, let's confront the less romantic, often grim side of their existence, the perils faced by naval felines. Life on a ship, especially a pirate ship, was inherently dangerous, and our furry companions were not immune to its many threats. Their survival was a testament to their resilience. In rough seas, you can almost feel the dread of a sailor spotting a beloved feline companion disappearing into the churning waves, knowing there's little, if anything, that can be done. Then there were the storms. While we talked about cats supposedly predicting them, surviving one was another matter entirely. The ship would pitch and roll violently, waves crashing over the bow, wind howling through the rigging. Below deck, cargo could shift, creating crush hazards. You'd probably see them huddled in the tightest corners. While generally cherished, a cat could still be accidentally injured or killed, a stray kick in the dark, being stepped on amidst a hasty maneuver. Though rare, a particularly cruel or careless sailor might deliberately harm a cat. Historians still argue about the true prevalence of animal cruelty on ships. The value of ships' cats likely offered them a degree of protection, a mainstream historical fact that adds context. Life for sailors themselves was incredibly brutal. Disease, accidents, and violence were commonplace. The cat was part of this hazardous ecosystem. Diseases, as discussed with rodents, could also affect cats. While they were the solution to one disease vector, they were still susceptible to their own ailments. Feline diseases, parasites, and infections would have been common, often without any available treatment. You'd mourn the passing of a good mouser, not just for the emotional bond, but for the practical void it left. One quirky or fringe tidbit is the occasional account of ships' cats getting injured during boarding actions or naval battles. Imagine the chaos, cannons roaring, muskets firing, men shouting, splintered wood flying everywhere. A cat caught in the midst of this pandemonium could easily be struck by shrapnel, trampled in the melee, or disoriented to the point of falling overboard. While their primary role wasn't combat, they were undeniably present, living through the same terrifying experiences as the human crew. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? A tiny feline dodging cannonballs. Shortages of fresh water and food also posed a constant threat. While cats were often prioritized, long voyages or unforeseen delays could lead to rationing. A cat's survival depended on the crew's ability to maintain their own dwindling supplies. This highlights their absolute dependence on their human companions. Despite their fierce independence in hunting, the very success of a cat could lead to its demise. Hunting in the dark, confined spaces of a ship. A cat might encounter a particularly aggressive rat, one capable of inflicting serious bites or scratches. These injuries, if untreated, could become infected and prove fatal. It was a constant battle. While difficult to quantify precisely, it's reasonable to assume that the harsh conditions would have led to a higher mortality rate among ship's cats compared to their land-dwelling counterparts. Each cat that survived multiple voyages was truly an exceptional survivor. When a ship was captured or sank, the fate of the ship's cat was often dire. If the ship went down, the cat would likely go with it, a silent casualty of the sea. If the ship was captured, the cat might be abandoned or taken by the new crew, adapting to a new set of masters and a new environment. Its destiny was inextricably linked to the fortunes of its vessel and its human crew. You'd hope that if your ship was taken, your cat would find a kind hand among the captors. The constant movement of the ship, even in calm waters, demanded a physical toll, but persistent drain on their energy. Finally, the simple wear and tear of time and age would catch up. Without access to proper veterinary care, older cats would suffer from dental problems, arthritis, and other ailments common in aging animals. Their hunting prowess would diminish, and their ability to cope with the demands of ship life would wane. As you reflect on the purring presence of a ship's cat, remember the invisible dangers that constantly surrounded it. From the fury of a tempest to the unseen claw of disease, their lives were a constant testament to survival against the odds. Every nap was earned, every successful hunt a small victory against the perils of the sea. They were brave little souls, living their lives on the edge, their quiet courage often mirroring the daring lives of the pirates they served. You've braved the perils alongside our feline friends, a testament to their resilience in a dangerous world. Now, let's consider an unexpected, yet utterly vital, contribution of these whiskered crewmates, their role in feline contributions to hygiene. While the idea of a pirate ship being hygienic might induce a chuckle or a shiver, cats, in their own quiet way, played a significant part in maintaining a semblance of cleanliness and health on board. Imagine the conditions on a 17th. Sanitation was practically non-existent by modern standards. There were no flush toilets, no running water for washing beyond a few barrels of precious fresh water. Waste was often simply thrown overboard, and the living quarters were cramped, dark, and damp. The air would have been thick with the smell of unwashed bodies, stale food, tar, and general grime. In this environment, anything that reduced the filth and the pathogens was a small miracle. This is where the ship's cat truly shines. Their primary contribution, as we've discussed, was rodent control. By eliminating rats and mice, cats directly reduced the spread of diseases carried by these pests. Rats aren't just destructive. They leave behind droppings and urine that contaminate surfaces, food, and water. They gnaw on anything, creating dust and debris. By removing the rodents, the cats were, in essence, performing a constant, living form of disinfection. You might not see it happening, but the absence of rodent droppings in your food stores was a direct result of the cat's nightly patrols. A MAINSTREAM historical fact. Here is the sheer prevalence of disease on ships. Scurvy, dysentery, typhus, and various fevers ravaged crews, often claiming more lives than battle. Any measure, however small, that could mitigate the conditions conducive to disease spread was invaluable. While pirates certainly weren't medical pioneers, They instinctively recognized the link between vermin and ill health, beyond direct disease vectors. Consider the general cleanliness. Cats are fastidious groomers. You'd often see them meticulously cleaning their fur, a constant, almost obsessive ritual. While this might seem like a minor point, in a filthy environment, a clean animal stands out. Their presence might have subtly encouraged a tiny bit more cleanliness among the crew, if only by contrast. It's like having a tiny, furry, perpetually judging clean freak silently shaming you into tidiness. One quirky or fringe tidbit. Some sources suggest that the presence of cats on board might have subtly deterred other small, unwanted creatures, like cockroaches and certain types of beetles, simply through their predatory scent and occasional opportunistic hunting. While rats and mice were the main targets, a hungry cat wouldn't turn its nose up at other scurrying things, further contributing to a marginal reduction in overall insect populations. It's a multi-purpose cleaner, just without the lemon scent. Historians still argue whether the perceived cleanliness of cats contributed to their favorable reception among sailors, beyond their hunting prowess. While certainly their primary value was pest control, their inherent tidiness might have made them more agreeable companions than, say, a dog, which could bring more mess aboard. This subtle preference might have cemented their position as the preferred ship animal. Moreover, the absence of dead rodents and their associated decomposition was a significant hygienic benefit. Without cats, the ship's hold would inevitably accumulate dead rats and mice, leading to foul odors and further breeding grounds for bacteria. The cat's prompt disposal of its kills, often consuming them or simply removing them from view, prevented this buildup of putrefying organic matter. You wouldn't want to be the one tasked with finding and removing all the deceased rodents, so the cat was doing everyone a favor. Consider the psychological impact as well. Living in a constantly dirty environment can wear down morale. The reduction of visible pests, the absence of gnawing sounds, and the general improvement in the feel of the ship, however slight, could contribute to a better mental state for the crew. A ship that felt less infested was a ship that felt less likely to succumb to illness or decay. It offered a small psychological reprieve from the grim realities. The cat's independence in its hunting also meant it didn't require human intervention for its hygienic duties. Unlike scrubbing decks or emptying slop buckets, the cat performed its function without needing to be told or supervised. It was a self-sustaining, biological cleaning service, operating silently and efficiently throughout the ship. It's the ultimate set-to-10-forget-it solution for pest management. Sometimes, the cats would bring their kills to the crew, almost as an offering or a display of their prowess. While perhaps not the most hygienic act in itself, it served as concrete proof of their effectiveness. It was a visual demonstration that the ship was being cleaned, one rodent at a time. Sea lads. Whiskers earned his supper tonight. The simple act of their presence, moving through the ship, might also have deterred larger, less desirable creatures, like scavenging birds when in port, or even snakes in certain tropical regions. While not their primary function, the general presence of a predator might have offered a broader, subtle hygienic benefit by keeping opportunistic scavengers away from food stores and living areas. It's an all-encompassing security system, if you will. So, while you might picture pirates as rough, unkempt figures remember that even they benefited from a degree of order and cleanliness. The ship's cat, in its silent, often overlooked way, was a crucial part of this. From preventing disease spread to simply making the living environment marginally more tolerable. Their contributions to hygiene were profound. They truly were the unsung heroes of shipboard sanitation, proving that even in the grimiest of conditions, a little feline fastidiousness could make a world of difference. You've explored the subtle, yet vital, hygienic contributions of ships' cats, adding another surprising layer to their utility. Now, let's delve into a more clandestine, even shadowy, aspect of their maritime existence, the intriguing, and sometimes murky, world of smuggling, stowaways, and shipcats. While not their primary role, these cunning felines, often unwittingly, became involved in the illicit activities that frequently occurred on the edges of the Golden Age of Piracy. Imagine a busy port, bustling with merchant vessels, naval ships, and of course, pirate havens. Goods of all kinds are being loaded and unloaded, from legitimate cargo to contraband. Amidst this organized chaos, our agile, curious ship's cats were often present. Their small size and ability to navigate tight spaces making them silent witnesses and occasionally accidental participants in activities far beyond their understanding. The most straightforward way cats intersected with smuggling was through the simple act of being present in cargo holds. Contraband, whether it be silks, spices, tobacco, or even illegal weapons, needed to be hidden. The cargo hold, with its myriad nooks, crannies, and concealed compartments, was the perfect place. Cats, patrolling these very spaces for rodents, might accidentally stumble upon hidden caches of goods. While they wouldn't report their findings, their curiosity could lead them into areas that humans might typically overlook, making them, in a very passive way, aware of illicit activities. You can almost picture a cat napping on a bale of silks, oblivious to the fact that it's part of a shipment avoiding customs duties, a mainstream historical fact. Here is the sheer volume of smuggling that occurred during the Golden Age of Piracy, and indeed throughout maritime history. Taxes, trade restrictions, and colonial monopolies made illicit trade incredibly profitable. Ships were designed with hidden spaces for all sorts of reasons, and smugglers exploited these to the fullest. Cats, moving freely through these hidden voids, were silent observers of this underground economy. Then there's the slightly more active, though still unwitting, involvement. Cats as proof of concept for concealed spaces. If a cat could easily navigate a secret passage or a hidden compartment, it was a good indicator that a human, or at least smaller packages, could also be moved through it. Pirates and smugglers, always innovative, might observe a cat's ability to squeeze into a tight space and realize its potential for concealing goods or even people. It's a crude but effective test, like using a small, furry, pewing drone to map out your secret lair. One quirky or fringe tidbit is the anecdotal possibility of cats inadvertently helping stowaways. While rare, a desperate individual seeking passage might hide in a dark, cramped space, perhaps sharing it with a ship's cat. The cat, accustomed to human presence, might not raise an alarm, and its own movements could even provide a small distraction. Though purely speculative, it adds a layer of quiet drama to the cat's shipboard life. Imagine a scared stowaway, huddled in the darkness, a calm cat providing an unexpected comfort in the terrifying silence. Historians still argue whether sailors deliberately used cats to find hidden contraband, training them to enter small spaces and perhaps react to certain scents. While the concept of deliberately training a cat for such a complex task during that era seems far-fetched, their natural curiosity and hunting instincts would inevitably lead them to explore every possible hiding spot, including those used for smuggling. Their presence alone might deter some opportunistic pilfering by low-level crew, fearing that the cat's discovery could lead to their undoing. Consider the notion of contraband animals. While cats were legitimate crew members, sometimes other animals were smuggled aboard, either for exotic pet trade or simply as personal belongings of sailors trying to avoid regulations. A ship's cat, being territorial, might have been the first to encounter such smuggled creatures, leading to curious interactions or even minor skirmishes below deck. It's a tiny, furry version of customs inspection, carried out by instinct. The cat's very nature as a free-roaming, independent creature meant it was often present in areas of the ship where formal inspections might be less thorough, while customs officials might search obvious compartments. A cat could be napping in a hidden alcove that only the most dedicated smuggler or the most curious cat knew about. This provided an additional layer of security for hidden goods, simply by virtue of the cat's undisturbed presence. Another aspect is the movement of cats themselves. While most ships' cats were permanent fixtures, some might have moved from ship to ship. This could happen through capture a pirate ship taking a merchant vessel's cat, or through a sailor taking his beloved feline companion with him when he signed onto a new crew. In a way, these cats were living, breathing examples of smuggled cargo, albeit generally tolerated ones. They crossed national and legal boundaries with impunity, their only concern being the next meal and a good hunting ground. The sheer difficulty of fully securing a ship from all hidden compartments and secret stashes meant that no vessel was truly immune to clandestine activities. And in this environment, a cat, with its uncanny ability to appear and disappear silently, became almost part of the ship's own hidden life. It was a silent witness to transactions and secrets, purring contentedly amidst illicit gains. So, as you conjure the image of a bustling pirate port, the clang of rigging and the shouts of men filling the air, remember the quiet, slinking forms of the ship's cats. While their primary job was rodent control, their natural curiosity and ability to traverse every inch of a vessel meant they often became unwitting participants in the shadowy world of smuggling and clandestine voyages. They were the silent partners in crime, the furry guardians of secrets, adding another intriguing layer to the unexpected role of cats in the Golden Age of Piracy. You've seen the pirate cat as a silent participant in the murky world of smuggling. Now, let's widen our lens and truly appreciate the larger picture, the unsung heroes of maritime history. These weren't just quirky sidekicks. The ships, cats of the Golden Age of Piracy, and indeed across centuries of seafaring, were crucial, though often overlooked. Their impact reverberated through the operational efficiency and human well-being on every vessel. Imagine spices from the east, sugar from the west, Indies textiles from Europe, Vast fortunes were transported across perilous oceans. Every single one of these voyages was constantly under threat from within, the insidious, relentless gnawing of rodents. Without effective pest control, food supplies would be decimated, ropes weakened, and the very structure of the ship compromised. It's not an exaggeration to say that without the humble cat, many of these long-distance trade routes would have been far more hazardous, if not outright unsustainable. A few hundred hungry rats can do to a wooden vessel over several months. A NSTREAM historical fact that underscores their importance is the sheer cost of provisions and ship maintenance. Every spoiled barrel of biscuits, every chewed-through rope, represented a significant financial loss and a drain on precious resources. By protecting these assets, cats indirectly saved shipowners and captains vast sums of money, contributing directly to the profitability of ventures. They were, in essence, highly effective, self-managing economic agents, their purrs translating into preserved capital. Consider the human cost. Disease, often exacerbated by rodent-borne pathogens, was a constant scourge on ships. As we've discussed, typhus and plague, carried by fleas on rats, could decimate a crew. Scurvy was rampant due to poor diet, but the contamination of what little fresh food was available by rodents only worsened the problem. By keeping rodent populations down, cats significantly reduced the risk of these devastating outbreaks. They were the frontline defense against invisible enemies, protecting the lives and health of every soul on board. You'd certainly sleep easier knowing that the furry little guardian was on patrol, preventing a potential plague outbreak from reaching your bunk. One quirky or fringe tidbit: there are some anecdotal accounts of ships having particular difficulties with rodents after a beloved, effective ship's cat died or was lost at sea, suggesting that a single, highly skilled mouser could have a disproportionately large impact on the ship's overall rodent population. This highlights not just the general utility of cats, but the immense value placed on individual star pest controllers. Historians still argue whether the strategic advantage provided by cats in terms of healthier crews and better maintained ships, while often overshadowed by grander narratives of battle and trade, the quiet efficiency of cats in preserving resources and health must have played a role in the broader maritime landscape. It's the boring background hum that allows the symphony to play on. The cats were also crucial for morale. In the isolated, often grim world of a ship, any source of comfort and normalcy was invaluable. Their companionship, their playful antics, and their simple, non-judgmental presence provided emotional ballast for crews facing loneliness, boredom, and constant danger. A ship with a content cat was often a ship with a slightly happier crew, and a happier crew was a more effective crew. Companions, unlike dogs, which often require more direct care and attention and can be more demanding of limited fresh water, cats are remarkably independent. They hunt their own food, the rats, they groom themselves, and they require relatively little oversight. This low-maintenance aspect made them perfect for the confined and busy environment of a ship. By those who sailed the seas, think about the sheer number of ships sailing during this era. Of cats were quietly, diligently performing their duties across the world's oceans at any given time. They were a truly global, unsung workforce, silently shaping maritime history, one dispatched rat at a time. It's a vast, invisible army of furry heroes. Their ability to adapt to diverse climates and conditions also contributed to their ubiquity. Whether in the scorching heat of the tropics or the biting cold of the North Atlantic, cats proved resilient. They adjusted to the constant movement, the varying food supplies, and the changing human faces, making them truly versatile members of any ship's company. The legacy of these ship's cats extends beyond the Golden Age of Piracy. They continued to serve on naval and merchant vessels well into the 20th century, only truly being phased out with modern pest control methods and vastly improved ship hygiene. Their long, continuous service is a testament to their unparalleled effectiveness and adaptability. As you picture the majestic, tall ships cutting through the waves, laden with treasure or vital supplies, remember the small, silent guardians within their hulls. The ship's cat, a creature of instinct and surprising companionship, was far more than a mere pet. It was a vital component of maritime success, a silent protector of lives and livelihoods, and an unsung hero whose furry paws left an indelible, if often overlooked, mark on the grand tapestry of human history. They were the small, boring detail that made the exciting, swashbuckling adventures possible. You've grasped the profound impact of ship's cats on the very fabric of maritime history. But what became of these silent heroes once their seafaring days were over? Let's contemplate the often written chapter of their lives. Life after piracy, a cat's retirement. For some, it might have been a peaceful end. For others, perhaps a new adventure, or a swift, less fortunate conclusion. Imagine a pirate ship, having completed its final successful raid, or perhaps its crew, tired of the constant chase, decides to retire from the illicit trade. What happens to the cat that has been its constant companion for years? Unlike human crew members who might seek a quiet life on land or spend their ill-gotten gains, a cat's retirement was rarely a deliberate choice. Its fate was inextricably linked to the decisions of its human companions, or the destiny of its vessel. One common scenario was that the ship's cat would simply remain with the ship. If the vessel was repurposed, perhaps sold to a merchant company, or even integrated into a legitimate navy, the cat might continue its duties under new management. It was, after all, a valuable asset. The new crew would likely welcome Mouser, inheriting its expertise and perhaps even its superstitions. It's like a furry, four-legged piece of intellectual property being transferred with the sale of the business. You can imagine the cat, oblivious to the change of ownership, simply continuing its patrols, perhaps wondering why the rum tasted different now. A MAINSTREAM historical fact that supports this is the practical nature of seafaring. Animals that proved useful were kept. There was little sentimentality when it came to efficiency. So a cat that had demonstrated its value over years would almost certainly be retained, assuming the ship remained active. It was an investment that continued to pay dividends. For cats, particularly cherished by a captain or a specific sailor, retirement might mean accompanying their human ashore. Imagine a grizzled pirate having accumulated enough treasure to buy a small cottage by the sea, bringing his beloved ship's cat with him. This would be a dramatic change for the animal, from the constant motion of the waves to the solid ground, from the confined spaces of a ship to the expansive outdoors. It would be a true golden retirement, filled with sunbeams, soft beds, and perhaps a lifetime supply of fresh fish. You can picture it, can't you? A former pirate, now a respectable, or at least outwardly respectable villager, sharing his evenings with a purring feline who'd seen more action than most landlubbers could dream of. One quirky or fringe tidbit is the rare possibility of a ship's cat being bequeathed in a will. While pirate wills were likely rare and informal, accounts from legitimate sailors and captains sometimes included provisions for their beloved pets. This underscores the depth of the bond that could form, elevating the cat from mere utility to a cherished companion whose welfare was considered even after the human's death. Imagine a cat inheriting a share of plunder, or at least ensuring it remained well fed. Historians still argue whether cats that lived exclusively on ships would truly thrive on land in their retirement. While domestic cats are adaptable, those accustomed to the unique environment of a ship, the constant sway, the confined spaces, the specific hunting grounds, might find the transition to land challenging. Would they miss the thrill of a swaying mast, or the endless expanse of the ocean? It's a fascinating thought whether a cat could truly become land-sick after a lifetime at sea. Some cats, especially those from captured vessels, might have found themselves abandoned in ports if a ship was scuttled, or if the crew simply dispersed without thought for the animal. The cat would become a stray, fending for itself in a new, unfamiliar environment. This was likely a harsh reality for many, particularly those without strong personal bonds with a specific sailor. Their hard-won survival skills would be put to the test in the unfamiliar urban landscape. For some, retirement simply meant dying. At sea, as we discussed in the perils section, life on a ship was dangerous. Old age, illness, or an accident could claim a cat's life in these instances, their quiet passing would be mourned by the crew, their absence felt, and often a new cat would eventually fill the void, continuing the tradition. It was a cycle of life and death, just like for the human crew. The longevity of a ship's cat was likely varied. A lucky, robust cat that avoided major accidents and disease might live for a decade or more, experiencing many voyages and different crews. These long-lived cats would become legendary in their own right, accumulating a lifetime of silent stories. You can almost see the reverence in a sailor's eyes as they spoke of old Barnacle, the cat that had survived every storm for the last 12 years. The very concept of a cat retiring highlights its status as a valued working animal. Just like a good sailor, a good cat was a reliable hand, and their years of service were appreciated. While they didn't receive a pension, their continued well-being was often seen as a small reward for their contributions. So, as the sun sets on the Golden Age of Piracy, and you envision the final voyages of these magnificent wooden ships, spare a thought for the fates of their silent, furry companions. Whether they continued their work on new vessels, found a peaceful existence on solid ground, or simply passed away at sea, their retirement was as varied and unpredictable as their lives. They were integral to the era, shaping the very nature of maritime life, and their quiet stories continued long after the Jolly Roger ceased to fly. You've pondered the varied fates of ships' cats as their active seafaring days concluded. But the story of cats and ships doesn't end with the Golden Age of Piracy. Their legacy and their surprising role continue to evolve, giving us intriguing modern echoes of ancient ship cats. While the age of sail is long past, the principles and practicalities that made cats indispensable centuries ago still resonate in unexpected ways, even in our technologically advanced world. Imagine, for a moment, a sleek, modern container ship, immense and steel-hulled, slicing through the waves. No creaking timbers, no flapping sails, no desperate need for pest control in the hold. Yet, even today, cats find their way onto vessels. While not for pest control in the traditional sense, their presence often fulfills that ancient role of companionship and morale boost. Many modern sailors, facing long periods at sea and isolation, still find immense comfort in the presence of a pet. You might find a purring cat lounging on the bridge, or curled up in a sailor's bunk in a vastly more comfortable cabin, a direct descendant in spirit of its pirateera ancestors. A mainstream historical fact is the continuation of animal mascots in modern navies and merchant fleets, while formalized roles for cats as pest controllers dwindled with better hygiene and chemical solutions. Their informal role as companions and morale boosters never truly disappeared. Naval ships and Coast Guard vessels, even today, sometimes have unofficial mascots, and often these are cats, perpetuating a tradition stretching back millennia. It's a testament to the enduring human need for animal companionship, regardless of technological advancement. Consider the psychological aspect. Life at sea, even on a comfortable modern vessel, can be monotonous. The endless horizon, the repetitive tasks, the confined social environment, these can take a toll on mental well-being. A cat offers a living, breathing connection to something beyond the sterile steel and machinery. Their playful antics, their demand for affection, and their simple presence can provide moments of joy and a sense of normalcy. You'd be surprised how much difference a playful swat at a dangling rope can make to a sailor on a long watch. One quirky or fringe tidbit is the phenomenon of stowaway cats that still occasionally appear on ships, often in ports with large stray populations. These cats, driven by instinct or hunger, find their way aboard and sometimes manage to survive for days or weeks before being discovered. While no longer welcomed for pest control, their discovery often leads to attempts at rehoming, or sometimes they are adopted by the crew, becoming an unexpected mascot. It's a modern, unintentional echo of how many ships' cats likely came aboard in the Golden Age. Imagine a sailor opening a crate, only to find a bewildered but surprisingly calm feline looking back at him. Historians still argue whether the instinctive bond between humans and cats, particularly in high-stress environments, is a fundamental evolutionary trait that explains their continued presence on ships, despite the diminishing practical need. Is it simply a matter of convenience, or is there a deeper, almost primal connection that draws us to these creatures for companionship in isolation? It's a fascinating question, exploring the enduring psychological need for animals. The modern cat cafes and animal therapy initiatives also serve as a distant echo. The calming effect of petting a cat, the reduction of stress and anxiety, these are principles now recognized by science. Sailors centuries ago might not have articulated it in clinical terms, but they intuitively understood the therapeutic benefits of their ship's cat. Their purring companions were, in a very real sense, their first onboard therapists. Even the language of the sea carries these echoes. Terms like cat's paw for a light breeze persist, connecting the feline image to maritime phenomena. The respect and occasional fear of harming a cat at sea, while no longer tied to specific superstitions about storms, still subtly exists in many seafaring cultures, a quiet acknowledgement of their historical significance and the bonds formed. You still wouldn't just toss a ship's cat overboard on a modern vessel without raising some serious eyebrows and perhaps a punch or two. Consider the ongoing challenges of invasive species in modern ecosystems. While ships no longer face the same level of rodent infestation, the accidental transport of species via cargo or human movement remains a global concern. The ancient ship's cat, in its role of preventing local rodent populations from spreading globally, was, in a very early and unintentional way, a form of biosecurity. It helped prevent the spread of invasive rodent species from one continent to another by containing them on the ship itself. It's a historical example of a biological solution to a global problem. The very image of a cat on a ship has become iconic, a powerful symbol of maritime tradition. From children's books to historical documentaries, the ship's cat holds a romanticized place in our collective imagination. This cultural resonance is a powerful echo of the truly vital role they once played, transcending their utilitarian function to become part of the very identity of seafaring. So, as you watch a cargo ship glide silently across the horizon, or imagine a modern naval vessel on patrol, remember the long lineage of ship's cats that came before. From the scruffy Mausers of pirate ships to the sleek companions on today's steel giants, their quiet presence has endured. They are a living bridge between the harsh realities of ancient maritime life and the technological marvels of the present, proving that some connections, especially those between humans and their animal companions, are truly timeless. Their purrs, once a sign of a rodent-free hold, now resonate as a comforting hum across the centuries, a testament to an enduring, surprising partnership. You've pondered the varied fates of ships' cats as their active seafaring days concluded. But the story of cats and ships doesn't end with the Golden Age of Piracy. Their legacy and their surprising role continued to evolve, giving us intriguing modern echoes of ancient ship cats. While the age of sail is long past, the principles and practicalities that made cats indispensable centuries ago still resonate in unexpected ways, even in our technologically advanced world. Imagine, for a moment, a sleek, modern container ship, immense and steel-hulled, slicing through the waves. No creaking timbers, no flapping sails, no desperate need for pest control in the hold. Yet, even today, cats find their way onto vessels. While not for pest control in the traditional sense, their presence often fulfills that ancient role of companionship and morale boost. Many modern sailors, facing long periods at sea and isolation, still find immense comfort in the presence of a pet. You might find a purring cat lounging on the bridge, or curled up in a sailor's bunk in a vastly more comfortable cabin, a direct descendant in spirit of its pirateera ancestors. A mainstream historical fact is the continuation of animal mascots in modern navies and merchant fleets, while formalized roles for cats as pest controllers dwindled with better hygiene and chemical solutions. Their informal role as companions and morale boosters never truly disappeared. Naval ships and Coast Guard vessels, even today, sometimes have unofficial mascots, and often these are cats, perpetuating a tradition stretching back millennia. It's a testament to the enduring human need for animal companionship, regardless of technological advancement. Consider the psychological aspect. Life at sea, even on a comfortable modern vessel, can be monotonous. The endless horizon, the repetitive tasks, the confined social environment, these can take a toll on mental well-being. A cat offers a living, breathing connection to something beyond the sterile steel and machinery. Their playful antics, their demand for affection, and their simple presence can provide moments of joy and a sense of normalcy. You'd be surprised how much difference a playful swat at a dangling rope can make to a sailor on a long watch. One quirky or fringe tidbit is the phenomenon of stowaway cats that still occasionally appear on ships, often in ports with large stray populations. These cats, driven by instinct or hunger, find their way aboard and sometimes manage to survive for days or weeks before being discovered. While no longer welcomed for pest control, their discovery often leads to attempts at rehoming, or sometimes they are adopted by the crew, becoming an unexpected mascot. It's a modern, unintentional echo of how many ships' cats likely came aboard in the Golden Age. Imagine a sailor opening a crate, only to find a bewildered but surprisingly calm feline looking back at him. Historians still argue whether the instinctive bond between humans and cats, particularly in high-stress environments, is a fundamental evolutionary trait that explains their continued presence on ships, despite the diminishing practical need. Is it simply a matter of convenience, or is there a deeper, almost primal connection that draws us to these creatures for companionship in isolation? It's a fascinating question, exploring the enduring psychological need for animals. The modern cat cafes and animal therapy initiatives also serve as a distant echo. The calming effect of petting a cat, the reduction of stress and anxiety, these are principles now recognized by science. Sailors centuries ago might not have articulated it in clinical terms, but they intuitively understood the therapeutic benefits of their ship's cat. Their purring companions were, in a very real sense, their first onboard therapists. Even the language of the sea carries these echoes. Terms like cat's paw for a light breeze persist, connecting the feline image to maritime phenomena. The respect and occasional fear of harming a cat at sea, while no longer tied to specific superstitions about storms, still subtly exists in many seafaring cultures, a quiet acknowledgement of their historical significance and the bonds formed. You still wouldn't just toss a ship's cat overboard on a modern vessel without raising some serious eyebrows and perhaps a punch or two. Consider the ongoing challenges of invasive species in modern ecosystems. While ships no longer face the same level of rodent infestation, the accidental transport of species via cargo or human movement remains a global concern. The ancient ship's cat, in its role of preventing local rodent populations from spreading globally, was, in a very early and unintentional way, a form of biosecurity. It helped prevent the spread of invasive rodent species from one continent to another by containing them on the ship itself. It's a historical example of a biological solution to a global problem. The very image of a cat on a ship has become iconic, a powerful symbol of maritime tradition. From children's books to historical documentaries, the ship's cat holds a romanticized place in our collective imagination. This cultural resonance is a powerful echo of the truly vital role they once played, transcending their utilitarian function to become part of the very identity of seafaring. So, as you watch a cargo ship glide silently across the horizon, or imagine a modern naval vessel on patrol, remember the long lineage of ship's cats that came before. From the scruffy Mausers of pirate ships to the sleek companions on today's steel giants, their quiet presence has endured. They are a living bridge between the harsh realities of ancient maritime life and the technological marvels of the present, proving that some connections, especially those between humans and their animal companions, are truly timeless. Their purrs, once a sign of a rodent-free hold, now resonate as a comforting hum across the centuries, a testament to an enduring, surprising partnership. You've traced the surprising presence of ship's cats from the pirate era to modern times, observing the echoes of their historical roles. Now, as our journey nears its end, let's bring it all together and consider the enduring legacy of the pirate cat. This isn't just about a historical footnote. It's about how these unassuming creatures etched themselves into maritime lore, becoming far more than mere vermin catchers. Their story is a quiet yet compelling testament to adaptability, utility, and the profound human need for companionship, even in the most perilous of worlds. Imagine, for a final time, the Jolly Roger snapping in the wind, a symbol of rebellion and adventure. And somewhere on that ship, amidst the rough men and the scent of salt and gunpowder, is a cat. This image, deeply ingrained in popular culture, speaks volumes. The pirate cat is a potent symbol of resilience, independence, and resourcefulness, traits often ascribed to the pirates themselves. It's a mirroring, a small, furry reflection of the very spirit of the Golden Age of Piracy. You can't quite picture a classic pirate ship without imagining a cat somewhere on board, can you? It just feels incomplete, a mainstream historical fact that solidifies their legacy is their omnipresence in artistic depictions and literary accounts of seafaring. From children's books and adventure novels to historical paintings and films, the ship's cat has become an almost archetypal figure, often portrayed as a calm, watchful presence amidst the chaos, or a playful foil to the hardened sailors. This consistent portrayal has cemented their place in our collective imagination, making them an inseparable part of the romanticized image of the sea. Consider the narrative power they hold. They were the silent witnesses to epic voyages, brutal battles, and daring escapes. While humans recounted their tales of daring do, the cats simply lived through it all, their quiet presence lending an air of authenticity to the gritty reality of life at sea. They saw the captains at their most vulnerable, the crew at their most desperate. Their legacy is one of unspoken history, a history told not through written logs, but through countless purrs, pounces, and shared moments of quiet solitude. 1. quirky or fringe tidbit that speaks to their enduring appeal is the modern practice of naming ships or maritime-themed establishments after famous or even imagined ships, cats. While not as common as naming them after historical figures or mythical beasts, the occasional The Lucky Black Cat Pub or Whiskers Galley restaurant keeps their memory alive. It's a subtle nod to their charming presence and the deep affection they inspired. You might stumble into a quiet pub by the docks, and there, emblazoned on a wooden sign, is the image of a contented feline, a direct descendant of those ancient ships, cats. Historians still argue whether the romanticized image of the pirate cat, particularly in modern popular culture, accurately reflects their arduous lives at sea, or if it oversimplifies the harsh realities they faced. While the practical utility was undeniable, the cultural narrative often focuses on their companionship and charm, perhaps overlooking the constant dangers and challenging conditions they endured. It's a balance between historical accuracy and the power of myth. The pirate cat's legacy also resonates in its contribution to the very language of seafaring. Phrases like cat o' nine tails, a whip, though unconnected to the animal, ironically sharing the name or the aforementioned cat's paw for a breeze, subtly embed the feline presence into nautical lexicon. This linguistic echo ensures their influence, however indirect, continues to ripple through the words we use to describe the sea. Their story is also a powerful reminder of interdependence. Humans needed the cats for pest control, and cats needed humans for food, water, and shelter. This mutual reliance forged a unique partnership that endured for centuries. It highlights how, even in the most self-reliant and individualistic of professions like piracy, success often depended on unexpected alliances, even with a creature that couldn't wield a cutlass. Furthermore, the pirate cat stands as a symbol of unwavering presence. Through storm and calm, battle and boredom, capture and freedom, the cat was there. It was a constant, a steadying influence in a life of constant flux. This steadfastness makes them an almost comforting figure in the chaotic narratives of piracy, a quiet anchor in a tempestuous world. You could always count on the cat to be somewhere doing its cat-like things, providing a small piece of stability. The enduring charm of the pirate cat also lies in its universality. Cats transcend cultures and continents. Whether a vessel was British, French, Spanish, or American, whether its crew were merchants, navymen, or pirates, the presence of a ship's cat was a common thread. This shared experience, this universal appreciation for their unique skills and companionship, unites diverse groups of seafarers across time and geography. Finally, the pirate cat embodies the idea that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. They weren't grand figures wielding swords or commanding fleets, but their quiet, efficient work was crucial. They remind us that history isn't just made by the powerful and famous, but also by the small, the overlooked, and the seemingly insignificant. Their story elevates the mundane to the magnificent, transforming a simple mouser into a legendary companion. And so, as the image of the pirate ship fades into the mists of history, the quiet, contented purr of the ship's cat remains. It's a purr that echoes across the centuries, a testament to a unique partnership forged on the high seas. It's the hum of forgotten battles against rodents, the quiet comfort in lonely watches, and the subtle, enduring charm that has ensured their place in maritime legend. They were, truly, the boring history that made the exciting history possible. And for that, we owe them a quiet, purring salute. The creak of the ship's timbers softens into the quiet settling of your home. Let the images of daring pirates and their quiet, furry companions gently drift away with the last whispers of the waves. The salty air dissipates, replaced by the comforting scent of your pillow. There's nothing left to worry about now. No scurrying rats, no looming storms, just the soft, steady rhythm of your own breath. Let the stories settle and the quiet calm embrace you.